the fire that forged justice. The shrill wail of a smoke alarm pierced the tranquil summer morning in Willow Creek, Tennessee. From my porch, I watched in horror as thick, black smoke curled into the pristine blue sky above Maple Grove Resort, the haven I'd pour my life into. My phone buzzed relentlessly in my pocket, and when I answered, my assistant Sarah's voice was frantic. "James, the cabins. The fire's spreading so fast." My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the wooden planks as I sprinted toward my truck. Even from miles away, I could see flames licking the sky, consuming the legacy my grandfather had built with his own hands. As I sped closer, a gaudy red Cadillac peeled out of the resort's parking lot, its driver unmistakable, Linda Carver, the woman whose offer to buy my land I'd rejected just yesterday. "I'm James Harper, a 52-year-old man who inherited Maple Grove Resort 3 years ago. It started as 6 modest cabins nestled among towering maples, with sweeping views of Willow Lake. Under my care, it grew to 15 luxury retreats, each blending my grandfather's rustic vision with modern comforts that drew guests from across the Southeast. The resort sat just beyond the boundaries of Crestview Heights, an upscale neighborhood ruled by its iron-fisted homeowners association. I'd heard whispers about Linda Carver, the HOA president, but nothing prepared me for her audacity. It was a crisp Tuesday when her Cadillac rolled in my gravel lot, kicking up dust that seemed to offend her pristine vehicle. Linda stepped out in a leopard print blouse, lime green heels, and enough gold jewelry to sink a small boat. Trailing her was Harold Vance, her nervous vice president, clutching a tablet and sweating profusely in the July heat. "Mr. Harper," she called, her smile as cold as a winter wind. "I'm Linda Carver, president of Crestview Heights HOA." Her handshake was limp, her eyes scanning my property like a vulture circling prey. "What a charming little setup," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. Over lemonade at the resort's lakeside cafe, Linda pitched her plan. The HOA wanted to buy Maple Grove for twice its market value to build a community wellness center. I might have considered it, but Harold's tablet slipped, revealing blueprints for a sprawling private estate, not a public facility. "I appreciate the offer," I said firmly, "but Maple Grove isn't for sale. My grandfather built this place board by board, and I promised to keep it in the family." Linda's smile tightened, her bracelets jangling as she leaned forward. "James, you're surrounded by Crestview Heights now. It's in everyone's best interest if you sell willingly." When I held my ground, her mask slipped. "You'll regret this," she hissed, storming off with Harold scrambling behind. The next day, cancellations flooded in. Guests cited vague safety concerns about Maple Grove. By afternoon, I found danger, unsafe conditions signs illegally posted at the resort's entrance. As I tore them down, my phone pinged with an email from my boss, Richard Langley, at Willow County Investment Fund, where I worked as a senior financial advisor. "James, you're reviewing the financials of several local HOAs for their next funding cycle. Crestview Heights is on the list." Attached were detailed records, and, as I scanned them, red flags jumped out. Linda had funneled over $250,000 in a fake maintenance projects that never happened. The irony hit me hard. I held the power to approve or deny Crestview's funding for the next 3 years. I decided to keep my role quiet while digging deeper. Linda's harassment escalated. Every morning, I found fake HOA notices in my mailbox, fining me $200 for unapproved fence colors or $500 for excessive tree growth. One absurd notice demanded I remove non-native plants that had grown on my land for decades. Another claimed my cabin's natural oak siding violated Crestview's aesthetic standards. I spent hours confirming that Maple Grove lay outside their jurisdiction, armed with county maps and deeds. Meanwhile, my bookings plummeted and guests turned away after seeing the signs. I felt a fire kindling in my chest, not of defeat, but of resolve. This wasn't just about my resort anymore. It was about exposing a bully. I confronted Linda at the HOA's ostentatious office, a faux colonial building with absurd white columns. Inside, she sat behind a desk that screamed excess, her neon orange dress clashing with the room's muted tones. "These maps prove Maple Grove is outside your boundaries," I said, sliding documents across her desk. "Your fines are illegal. Stop harassing my business." Her smile vanished. "These maps are outdated," she snapped. "Crestview is expanding, and your eyesore will be under our control." When I cited my resort's history and awards, she exploded. "I'll redraw the boundaries and make you comply," she shouted, her face as red as her Cadillac. Other board members shifted uncomfortably, one woman rolling her eyes when Linda wasn't looking. Back at the resort, anonymous texts from HOA members revealed Linda's pattern. She'd forced out other property owners with fake violations until they sold cheap. That evening, I found "Get Out" spray painted across my truck at the local grocery store. The security footage? Conveniently malfunctioning, though the red Cadillac was faintly visible leaving the lot. My neighbor, Emma Thornton, the only Crestview resident who openly supported me, brought worse news. "James, Linda's declared war," she whispered on my porch. "She told the HOA she'll make you beg to sell." As we sipped bourbon under the fading light, I showed Emma the financial records. "She's been stealing from the HOA for years," I said. "Fake contracts, ghost companies. She's untouchable because of her connections." Emma's eyes widened. "That explains the rising dues and crumbling amenities. Be careful, James. She's dangerous when cornered." I sat alone that night, staring at a photo of my grandfather and me building the first cabin. Linda was pushing me to the edge, but I vowed to fight smart. I didn't know then how far she'd go, or how soon. The dawn broke over Willow Creek with an eerie calm, but by mid-morning, my world was upended again. I woke to find Maple Grove Resort encircled by environmental hazard, restricted area signs planted overnight. Heavy machinery, backhoes, cement trucks blocked every access road, supposedly for emergency repairs. Guests couldn't get in, deliveries were turned away, and even the mail carrier was told the area was unsafe. When I confronted the foreman, he shrugged, showing me permits that reeked of Linda Carver's influence at the county office. "Just following orders, man," he muttered, avoiding my gaze. Roadworks set for 2 weeks. The phone rang nonstop with cancellations. Online, fake reviews flooded in, claiming Maple Grove had health code violations and dangerous conditions. My once thriving resort became a ghost town. The financial toll was brutal. I couldn't pay my small staff, and several gave notice, their eyes full of regret. I dug deeper into Crestview Heights financials, uncovering more rot. $80,000 paid to a non-existent Elite Safety Solutions and $40,000 to a premier groundskeeping that never touched a blade of grass. Both traced back to accounts linked to Linda through her cousins. Most chilling was a $20,000 transfer to Rapid Demolition Services with a note, "MG Cleanup." My blood ran cold. Was this about Maple Grove? On Wednesday, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this James Harper?" a young woman asked, her voice trembling. "I'm Claire Carver, Linda's daughter. We need to meet, somewhere private." We agreed on Willow Creek Diner, far from Crestview. Claire arrived late, her eyes darting nervously. Unlike her mother, she wore simple jeans and a plain sweater, her face free of makeup. She slid a folder across the table. "Mom's not building a wellness center," she blurted. "She wants your land for a private mansion with lake access. HOA funds are paying for it, but it'll be in her name." The folder held architectural plans for a gaudy estate where my cabin stood. "Why tell me?" I asked. Claire twisted her napkin. "She's done this before. 3 other properties. She ruined those people. I can't watch it again." That afternoon, I caught Linda and Harold trespassing on my land, measuring and photographing cabins in broad daylight. They'd slipped through a service path I didn't even know existed, bypassing their own roadblocks. "This is private property," I shouted, striding toward them. Linda's gold earrings glinted as she sneered. "Your days here are numbered, Harper." Well, I didn't back down. She stepped closer, her perfume choking the air. "You have no idea what I can do," she hissed, then flung her coffee in my face. I stood stunned, liquid dripping down my shirt, as Harold filmed, starting only after her provocation. That evening, a doctored video hit local social media, painting me as an aggressive bully. Comments piled up, fueled by strangers who didn't know the truth. My reputation in Willow Creek, a town I'd called home for decades, was crumbling. I turned to Deputy Thomas Bradley, one of the few officials not in Linda's pocket. Showing him my unedited security footage, I watched his jaw tighten. "This isn't the first complaint about Carver," he admitted. "But she's slippery, always just inside the law. The trespassing's a civil matter, and those permits are technically valid, though rushed." He frowned at a map of the roadblocks. "Someone's pulling strings of the county. Document everything, James. A restraining order might help, but judges here are wary of crossing her." As I left, Emma texted urgently, "Overheard Linda and Harold planning to clear out your cabins tonight. Be careful." My stomach nodded. I tried calling Deputy Bradley, but he was on another call. The main road to Maple Grove was under construction again, forcing a 45-minute detour. As I neared the resort, smoke stained the horizon. Sarah's call confirmed my dread. "James, they're burning the cabins." I saw Linda's Cadillac leaving. By the time I arrived, Maple Grove was a hellscape. Flames devoured the cabins, their wooden frames collapsing into glowing embers. Firefighters arrived too late. By dusk, my grandfather's legacy was ash, the acrid stench burning my lungs. The fire chief approached, his face grim. "Arson," he said quietly. "Multiple ignition points, accelerant used. We'll investigate," but he didn't finish. We both knew Linda's reach might bury the truth. The next morning, my bank accounts, personal and business, were frozen for suspected fraud. The branch manager, a known ally of Linda's, handed me a vague letter with a smirk. Without funds, I couldn't clear debris, pay staff, or even afford a motel. Emma offered her guest room, but I refused, not wanting to paint a target on her. I slept in my truck at the edge of the ruins, watching coyotes prowl through the ashes. 3 days later, a real estate agent delivered Linda's new offer, 60% below market value, with a 48-hour deadline. Her note read, "Be smart. You're out of moves." Despair clawed at me. With no resort, no money, and a tarnished name, was she right? Sitting in my truck, the AC battling the summer heat, I nearly accepted. Then Richard Langley called. "James, get to my office now. Those HOA discrepancies you flagged, they're worse than we thought. And I hear about a fire at your place." I drove to the ruins first, sifting through the wreckage of the main cabin. A broken picture frame caught my eye, my grandfather and me smiling. As I lifted it, the warped metal cut my hand. Blood mixed with ash as I stared at the photo, rage and grief surging. I pounded the charred beam beneath me, tears streaming down my face. Then I noticed something in the background, a historical marker, barely legible, hinting Maple Grove was a stop on the Lewis and Clark expedition. If true, it could protect the land from forced sales. Hope flickered. Then Claire called, her voice panicked. "Mom hired men to burn what's left of your main cabin tonight. She thinks it'll break you." I called Deputy Bradley, but without Claire's formal statement, he could only patrol later. The access road was blocked again, forcing me to hike through the woods. Emma's call came as I ran. "James, they've done it again. The main cabin's gone." When I reached the clearing, the last of my grandfather's original cabin was a roaring inferno. As flames lit the twilight, something hardened inside me. Linda had taken everything tangible, but she'd also freed me to fight without fear. The morning after the second fire, I walked into Richard Langley's office at Willow County Investment Fund, looking like a man who'd lost it all, because I had. My clothes were wrinkled from nights in my truck, my hand bandaged from the cut, and dark circles framed my eyes. Richard, a sharp-eyed man in his late 50s with graying hair, listened silently as I recounted everything. Linda Carver's offer, the harassment, the fires. I slid a USB drive across his desk, loaded with evidence, financial records, security footage, falsified HOA notices, and Claire's architectural plans. "I should have come to you sooner," I admitted, but I needed airtight proof against someone as connected as Linda. Richard scanned the files, his frown deepening. James, as your boss, I should chew you out for not disclosing your conflict of interest with Crestview Heights. My heart sank, bracing for dismissal. But he continued, your integrity's proven over 6 years here. I'm greenlighting A's forensic audit of their HOA, effective now. You'll have full resources, and I'm freezing their funding until we're done. Relief washed over me, lightening the weight I'd carried for weeks. There's more, I said. Linda's behind the fires. I'm sure of it, but I lack court-ready proof. Richard's eyes hardened. Then we'll find it. Arson on commercial property is federal. I'm looping in our legal team and the state fire marshal. He paused, studying me. James, you look awful. Get a hotel room. Company's dime. Rest. Clean up. Come back sharp tomorrow. I wanted to dive in, but exhaustion dulled my edge. I checked into Willow Creek Inn, showered, and collapsed into a dreamless sleep. The next morning, feeling human again, I joined Emma at Crestview Heights' monthly HOA meeting. Linda presided like a queen, her fuchsia dress clashing with the room's beige walls. Her eyes flickered when she saw me in the back, but she pressed on, unveiling renderings of a community wellness center that bore no resemblance to Claire's mansion plans. Thanks to recent property changes, she said smugly, we'll expand onto the former Maple Grove Resort. Her jab at my loss made my fist clench, but I stayed calm, recording every word. Hours later, Linda received notice from Willow County. Crestview's funding was suspended pending investigation. Her frantic calls to the fund hit dead ends. By noon, she called an emergency HOA meeting, pinning accounting errors on Harold Vance. Harold, pushed too far, snapped. This isn't about typos, he shouted, trembling. It's about $300,000 vanished into shell companies you control. Linda. The room exploded in gasps. Harold detailed Linda's schemes. Fake contracts, forced property sales, his voice cracking with guilt. Residents glared at Linda, their trust shattered. Back at the fund, Richard and I worked with accountants to trace every cent. The evidence was staggering. $450,000 in fraud, plus tax evasion and misuse of federal housing grants. Deputy Bradley, armed with our financial findings, secured warrants for Linda's devices. Found something, he told me, showing texts between Linda and hired thugs planning the fires. This'll get arrest warrants for arson and conspiracy. Justice felt close for the first time since the flames. Claire reached out, offering to testify. At Willow Creek Diner, she handed me another USB. Mom tried wiping her computer, she whispered, but I backed up everything, including recordings of her plotting the fires with Harold. Her hand shook. I should have spoken up sooner, but she's my mom. I squeezed her hand. You're doing the right thing, Claire. That takes guts. That evening, Linda ambushed me in the hotel parking lot, her Cadillac idling. Her makeup was smudged, her yellow blazer creased. We need to talk, Harper, she barked, her voice shaky. I know you're behind this investigation. Name your price to drop it. I recorded her, my voice steady. No deal, Linda. You burned my family's legacy and stole from your neighbors. Justice isn't for sale. Her face twisted. You'll pay for this. I still have pull in this town. As she sped off, I smiled faintly. She'd taken my resort, but not my resolve. She was about to learn that. The next week, Willow Creek Town Hall was packed for a hearing on Crestview's finances. Every chair was taken, with residents lining the walls. Linda sat with a nervous attorney, her orange dress screaming defiance. Harold, flanked by his own lawyer, avoided her glares. Richard opened the hearing. Willow County Investment Fund has uncovered major irregularities in Crestview Heights accounts. We're here to review evidence before deciding on future funding. He nodded to me. I stood, feeling Linda's shock as she realized my role. I'm James Harper, Senior Financial Advisor. I began. My audit reveals $450,000 in misappropriated funds. Linda leapt up, jewelry clanking. Conflict of interest. He owns land next to Crestview. Her attorney tried to hush her, but she was unhinged. The panel chair intervened. MS. Carver, We know Mr. Harper's property was destroyed by arson, which is under investigation. The evidence stands on its own. I presented slides, fake invoices, ghost companies, cash siphoned to Linda's relatives. Deputy Bradley followed, showing security footage of Linda's Cadillac near Maple Grove before the fires, with Harold in tow. Linda deflected. That proves nothing. I drive by there often. Harold, betrayed, stood. I have evidence, he said, placing a recorder on the table. Linda's voice filled the room. Burn those cabins to the ground, Harold. Make it look accidental. Harper will sell cheap when he's got nothing. The crowd gasped, Linda's attorney objecting in vain. I delivered the final blow. After the harassment started, I installed hidden cameras. Footage played, showing Linda directing men to douse my grandfather's cabin with accelerant. Burn it all, she ordered. I want Harper begging. The room erupted. Linda lunged for the recorder, only to be restrained. The panel recessed, returning with a unanimous ruling. Crestview's funding was cut, its charter suspended, and all records handed to the DA. Deputy Bradley cuffed Linda, charging her with embezzlement, conspiracy, and arson. As she was let out, her eyes burned into mine, but I felt only relief. The air outside Willow Creek Town Hall buzzed with chatter as reporters swarmed, their cameras flashing like fireflies in the dusk. Richard Langley clapped a hand on my shoulder, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. Willow County Investment Fund will help Crestview Heights establish a transparent HOA structure, he announced. We're also launching a recovery fund for businesses harmed by the prior administration's actions, starting with Maple Grove Resort. The words felt like a lifeline, but as the crowd dispersed, Claire Carver approached, tears streaking her face. I'm so sorry for what my mom did, she whispered. She wasn't always this way, not before Dad left. I nodded, my throat tight. This isn't on you, Claire. You showed real courage. She offered a shaky smile before her aunt led her away, shielding her from the media's glare. That evening, I returned to Maple Grove's ruins, the charred landscape glowing under a fiery sunset. The loss was still raw, decades of my grandfather's sweat reduced to ash. Yet, standing there, I felt his presence, as if he were nodding from beyond, proud I'd held medians I'd fought for. Linda Carver had underestimated me, seeing only a stubborn resort owner, not a financial advisor with the power to unravel her empire. That mistake was her undoing, and now it was the first step toward rebuilding Maple Grove stronger than ever. 6 months later, Willow Creek bloomed with an early spring, the hills bursting with pink dogwoods and white redbuds. I stood on the freshly built deck of Maple Grove's new main lodge, inhaling the scent of sawdust and hope. Construction crews hammered and sawed, erecting 20 luxury cabins where 15 once stood, each designed to honor my grandfather's vision while meeting modern standards. A community nature center, named after him, was taking shape nearby, its foundation laid with stones salvaged from the ruins. The transformation wasn't just physical. The town's spirit had shifted. Linda's arrest had shattered her grip, freeing Crestview Heights from fear. The legal proceedings moved swiftly, thanks to Harold Vance's full cooperation for a reduced sentence. In a packed courtroom, Linda maintained her innocence until the gavel fell, guilty on all counts: embezzlement, conspiracy, arson. 5 years in federal prison, plus $800,000 in restitution to the HOA and me for Maple Grove's destruction. As bailiffs led her away, her once gaudy wardrobe replaced by a plain gray suit, her eyes met mine. There was no remorse, only bitter defiance, as if she still couldn't grasp her fall. The insurance payout covered little, but Linda's seized assets and a county grant gave me enough to reimagine Maple Grove as a beacon of resilience. Richard made good on his promise, approving a development loan and promoting me to a role overseeing small business protections at the fund. The county verified Maple Grove's link to the Lewis and Clark expedition, earning it a historical designation. A bronze plaque now marked the site of my grandfather's original cabin, ensuring the land's protection forever. The community rallied like never before. Former Crestview residents volunteered weekends. Local businesses donated supplies, and even Harold, serving community service, redesigned the landscaping with native plants. I should have stopped her years ago, he admitted one day, wiping sweat from his brow as we planted wildflowers. It was easier to follow than fight. I understood, until the fires, I nearly buckled to. Claire visited often, bringing cookies for the crew and a quiet strength that belied her mother's shadow. She'd moved to Nashville with her aunt, earning a scholarship to Belmont University. I quietly arranged for Maple Grove to fund the rest through a new community foundation. You didn't have to, she said, her voice breaking when she learned. After what Mom did, I cut her off. You're not her, Claire. You chose right when it counted. Opening weekend in April was a triumph. The new cabins, named after Tennessee trees, oak, sycamore, cedar, gleamed under the sun. My grandfather's rebuilt cabin, now the museum, showcased Maple Grove's history. Emma, now my business partner after testifying against Linda, managed check-ins while I gave tours to local leaders and press. The rebirth felt miraculous, a testament to grit and community. One evening, Claire handed me a soot-stained metal box unearthed from the original cabin's foundation. The fire team missed this, she said. Inside are my grandfather's pocket watch, photos, and a letter addressed to me, written years before his death. My hands trembled as I read, James, if you're reading this, you're facing a trial that tests your soul. Material things burn or fade, but character and determination are fireproof. I believed in you from the start. Build something that lasts. Tears fell as I sat on the lodge deck, moonlight dancing on Willow Lake. Across the water, Crestview's new community center stood, its transparent governance a hard-won lesson from Linda's reign. In the distance, the courthouse loomed, where Linda awaited prison transfer, her power to harm gone. I felt no glee in her fall, only quiet satisfaction that justice had prevailed. A meteor streaked across the sky, and I wished not for wealth, but for wisdom to use this second chance well. Maple Grove would honor my grandfather's dream, a retreat for peace, a nature center for learning, a partner to Willow Creek. Linda had seen only land to conquer, blind to its heart. In trying to destroy it, she'd sparked something greater. From ashes, Maple Grove rose, proving that when someone burns your world for daring to say no, fate offers ways to rebuild, stronger, truer, eternal. The spring sun hung low over Willow Creek, casting golden light across the reborn Maple Grove Resort. From the main lodge deck, I watched guests settle into their cabins, their laughter mingling with the rustle of maple leaves. The 20 new cabins stood proud, their sleek designs blending seamlessly with the land my grandfather had loved. The Nature Center, named Harper's Haven in his honor, buzzed with school groups exploring exhibits on local wildlife and the Lewis and Clark expedition. A bronze plaque gleamed at the site of the original cabin, a quiet testament to the land's protected status. At 52, I'd faced the worst, fire, betrayal, despair, but standing here, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. The past 6 months had transformed not just Maple Grove, but Willow Creek itself. Linda Carver's conviction sent ripples through the town, exposing the cost of unchecked power. Crestview Heights' new HOA, led by Emma Thornton and a board of residents, operated with open books and term limits, ensuring no one could rule like Linda again. The community center she'd falsely promised was now real, funded by recovered HOA assets, and built on public land, not my resort. Local businesses thrived, freed from the shadow of Linda's influence, and Maple Grove became a symbol of what could rise from ruin. My role at Willow County Investment Fund grew too. Richard Langley's promotion put me in charge of a program to shield small businesses from predatory practices, a cause close to my heart after Linda's campaign. I worked long hours, but every loan approved, every family business saved, felt like a brick in Maple Grove's new foundation. Claire Carver, now thriving at Belmont University, sent regular updates, photos of her campus, essays she'd aced, dreams of becoming a social worker. You gave me a chance to start over, she wrote in one letter. I'll make you proud. I already was. The community's support never waned. Volunteers from Crestview Heights still showed up on weekends, planting gardens or painting railings. Harold Vance, nearing the end of his community service, became a fixture, his knack for logistics streamlining construction. I'm not proud of what I did, he told me one afternoon, hauling mulch for a new trail. But helping here, it's the least I can do. I nodded, knowing redemption was a long road, but he was walking it. Even Deputy Thomas Bradley stopped by, not as a cop, but as a neighbor, bringing his kids to the nature center. You did right, James, he said. This place is proof. Opening weekend had been a whirlwind, but the real milestone came a month later, when Maple Grove hosted its first annual Heritage Festival. Hundreds gathered, locals, tourists, even reporters, drawn by the story of a resort that refused to die. Emma and I led tours, sharing tales of my grandfather's vision and the fires that tested it. The museum, housed in the rebuilt original cabin, drew crowds to its displays. Photos of the old resort, my grandfather's tools, and a timeline of the Lewis and Clark connection. The metal box Claire found sat in a glass case. Its contents, watch, photos, letter, drawing hushed awe. My grandfather's words, build something that lasts, were etched on a plaque beside it. As dusk fell, the festival culminated in a lakeside bonfire, not a symbol of destruction, but of renewal. Guests roasted marshmallows, kids chased fireflies, and a local band played soft bluegrass. I stood with Emma, watching the flames dance. We did it, she said, her eyes reflecting the firelight. Not just you and me, the whole town. I smiled, thinking of Claire, Harold, even the anonymous texters who tipped me off about Linda. It took a village to rebuild, just as it took one to tear it down. The legal fallout wrapped up quietly. Linda's appeals failed, her prison sentence firm. Her seized assets, combined with my grant, funded Maple Grove's rebirth, but I took no joy in her suffering. Her downfall was justice, not vengeance, a lesson she'd never learn. Her final glare in court, full of resentment, haunted me briefly, but I let it go. She'd taken my cabins, but not my spirit. In her greed, she'd handed me a chance to build something greater. One evening, after the festival, I sat alone on the lodge deck, Willow Lake shimmering under a full moon. The letter from my grandfather rested in my lap, its words a compass through the storm. Character and determination are fireproof. He was right. Linda saw Maple Grove as land to conquer, blind to its soul. Family, community, resilience. Her fires meant to break me, but they forged something unbreakable. The new Maple Grove wasn't just cabins or a nature center. It was a promise kept, a legacy expanded. It welcomed strangers to find peace, taught kids to love the land, and stood as Willow Creek's heart. A shooting star crossed the sky, and I made another wish for the strength to steward this place well, to honor my grandfather's dream for generations. Across the lake, Crestview's lights glowed, no longer a threat but a partner. The courthouse, where Linda's empire fell, faded into the dark. Justice had won, not with fanfare, but with quiet certainty. I folded the letter, slipped it into my pocket, and headed inside. Tomorrow, new guests would arrive, and Maple Grove would live on. The story of Maple Grove is more than a tale of fire and fraud. It's a mirror to the battles we all face when power turns cruel. Linda's actions sparked debate in Willow Creek and beyond. How far can someone go before justice catches up? What do we owe our communities when greed threatens to tear them apart? I invite you to share your thoughts below, especially on the themes of violence and injustice. Have you faced a bully like Linda? Do you believe in fighting back or finding another way? Drop your perspective in the comments. Let's unpack the chaos together and see where we stand.